when people are committed to telling you what to do, you don't have to spend the energy explaining yourself or defending yourself or justifying why you don't want to have this conversation, right? This is what we're talking about when we do the process conversation, right? With like, I'm not going to get into you about why you're wrong, why I want this, what needs to happen over here. What you can say instead is, we've talked about this a lot of times. This isn't a subject that's up for discussion. I appreciate your care for me, but this isn't something that I'm going to discuss. Do you want to talk about something else? Do you want to tell me about your day? Do you want to talk about the weather? Moving that conversation into another direction. Other people's poor communication skills are not your fault. You can say, yep, yesterday I was willing to talk about it, and this isn't something that I'm willing to discuss moving forward. I get that you might have feelings about that, but that's not something I'm going to get into, right? So when you put a boundary in place, I think our dearest hope is that when we do the right thing, when we articulate the boundary clearly and with kindness and with love, that the other person will like behave accordingly. I've been having this conversation in a lot of different realms lately. So as somebody who travels and speaks and teaches, I have parameters within which I will do these things, right? Like, this is the fee, these are the terms, this is what's refundable, and this is what's not. Those are my terms. And I will very often submit those to a hospital or wherever I'm speaking, and their legal team will send it back to me, and they've erased all of my terms and given me theirs, which are not in my best interest. And they just think that I'll go, okay, I guess my needs aren't important. They clearly haven't met me, right? Because I don't do that. Just because you don't like my terms doesn't mean my terms change. Just because they don't like your boundaries doesn't mean your boundaries have to change. They get to have feelings about it, but they don't get to have feelings at you. Nobody has the right to be abusive or assaultive or argumentative even, right? It's okay if they don't like your boundaries, but your boundaries don't have to change just because somebody doesn't like it. And you also don't owe anybody justification for your boundaries. You do not. You get to make decisions that you feel are the healthiest and the wisest for you, given the information and resources available to you at the time. Does that mean that you might not look back as future you and look back and go, oh, I wish I made a different choice? No, we're human. Sometimes we look back and we go, I wish I'd made another choice. But this is the choice that I'm making right now. Knowing what I know of myself, knowing what has helped me in the past and what has not helped me in the past, I am making the best choice that I can for myself in this moment. Now, everything that I just said, you don't owe that to anybody else. You don't have to dictate that, narrate that to anybody else, right? And I'm spending more time with this one because I think this issue around boundaries and feeling like you need to prove that your boundaries are valid, I think this is something that a lot of people wrestle with. A lot of people wrestle with, right? We're just not accustomed to not defending ourselves. Yeah. And I think sometimes if you can remind yourself that this is something that is in process for me. I'm learning, talking to yourself here, not talking to somebody else, but like, I am learning to not justify my boundaries. I am learning to communicate my boundaries without justifying them, right? Remembering that you are practicing that, and sometimes you'll be able to do that better than others, right? You don't have to be perfect at it, but just reminding yourself that, wait, I'm doing that thing where I'm justifying what I know I need for myself, and I'm going to stop doing that right now. Yeah. Yeah. And also remembering that anytime you change the dynamic of the relationship, the other person's probably going to have feelings about it, right? Like, what do you mean? We used to argue about this all the time. You used to defend yourself to me all the time. How dare you take your chessboard and go home? One, that's to be expected. And two, that's not your problem. You can say, I know this is a different way for us to interact. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not open to this discussion right now. Two things: giving yourself that grace that you are learning to state a boundary without defending a boundary. And two, that the people who are accustomed to getting into an argument with you over your own boundaries will notice when you stop getting into arguments. Yeah.